Let me start off by posing one question, and let me start off with Chanda. Chanda, you've donned multiple roles. You've been rated as one of the most powerful women in business by Forbes, by Fortune. You lead India's largest private sector bank. You're among the top 10 most influential businesswomen in the world. Let me ask you, what does it take really to ensure that you break through the glass ceiling, you work through whatever it is that is required to make it right to the top in the corporate world?
Well, I think it's a combination of many things. It's what you yourself as a woman desire and want to achieve. It's what, the encouragement and support that you get from your family. And it's the entire ecosystem in the organization where you build your career. So let me start with the ecosystem first, because I think, I was very fortunate to be part of an organization that has always been a merit-oriented organization. And that gave all of us the comfort and confidence to say that if, even as women, we put in hard work, we'll be recognized for the work that we put in. We'll be given the next promotion or the next responsibility based on your capability and will not be discriminated against just because you were a woman. Well, beyond that, I think, it's about the woman himself or herself in that sense. Because, I have seen that women are actually sometimes even more capable and more intelligent than the boys that we recruit.
I agree. I completely agree.
But at the same time, we tend to give up when it's the most difficult time in our life stage, which is when we are starting our families. And I think that is the time when women need to decide not to give up. Because if you do not give up at that time, then you're able to continue for long. And I can later talk about what ICICI as an organization has done about really making life comfortable for women at that life stage. But I think that is very important. And I feel that at that time, it was I who believed that I want to do this because it's my desire. I'm not doing it because someone is forcing me to do it. And I think that conviction takes you through the period. But beyond that, I must say that, your family, your larger family, has to be a part of your growth and progress. And it's not, as mundane as saying that they're supportive of what you're doing. I think that's actually putting their contribution in a very mundane manner. I think what gives the woman the inspiration is the joy and pride that your family feels in your every step. And that is the biggest driver and motivation for women.
Fantastic, fantastic. Let me go to Karen quickly. Karen, Chanda represents the Indian corporate sector. She's an Indian woman who's made it right to the top, and she's worked her way through. How different is it in the United States? You've worked prior to Dell at multiple organizations, and you've been with Dell for the last 17 years. As I've mentioned, you're the top most ranked women in Dell right now. How difficult or how easy is it in the United States or the first world for a woman to reach right up to the top and to do what you've been doing?
Well, first of all, I agree with everything that she said in terms of what it takes to be successful. The confidence that you have to have in you and your capabilities and what you can do and what you can enable, I think, has a huge impact. And I couldn't agree more on when you reach those difficult times and you feel like giving up is when you actually have to stay the course, because as a mother of three, two of which are daughters, it's unbelievable how much of a role model you can be as a successful woman in helping them and their friends and the larger kind of community and being successful. Candidly, I'm actually quite optimistic about what is happening now in this area. I think we all agree the numbers are not moving as fast as they need to be moving, but the amount of support that we are seeing in companies, CEOs, the White House, various other public and organizations in the support around getting more women into leadership roles and enabling that, I think today is remarkable. So it's still tough. I mean, there's still a environment out there that is really conducive to men, candidly, and I think through policy change, through culture change, through having great leaders step up and really want to change the game when it comes to this, I'm actually optimistic that over the next couple of years, we're going to continue to see some real momentum.
Great, great. Then we go to Cherie. Cherie, for those of you who are unaware, mine is the famous surname. She was a lawyer back in 1976. She started her own law firm. And for the first time in the history of Britain, she was the first wife of a prime minister who had her own career. I think that was the first time that has ever happened in British history. So Cherie, how difficult was it to be in the limelight and also to have your own career? And I'm sure there must have been a fallout, there must have been a few issues that emanate from it. So let's talk about it, and how difficult is it, again, to be in the spotlight again and to fight it out through your own career?
Well, I think that, first of all, one of the reasons I was the first spouse of a prime minister to actually have gone to university, and that includes Dennis Thatcher, who didn't go to university, by the way, is just a generational thing. My predecessors, if you like, were of a different generation where girls, didn't get educated. In fact, Dorothy Macmillan, the wife of Macmillan, the prime minister, actually told her daughter that she shouldn't go to university and stopped her going to university because she said all she needed to do was to know how to run a household. So there's a generational thing and a change in what we expect from women. What was it like holding down a full-time job as well as being married to the prime minister? Well, I didn't think after 20 to 25 years in my own career, where I'd worked when I had 3 children under 5, when I was essentially supporting my husband as he went on his political career, why would I change my job just because he had changed his? Now, this did cause...
Absolutely.
This did cause some consternation in Downing Street, because they basically expected me to be there to be the hostess and the support, and to be wheeled out on the occasions when it was required. And I did all that, by the way. But one of the things that enabled me to carry on with my career actually was IT. Because by the time I got to Downing Street, I was able to conduct my business from Downing Street. So I might be dealing with my legal papers, I might be answering clients' queries from my desk. My client would not know where I was, nor would they know that possibly half an hour before that I'd been down greeting the First Lady of Tanzania to have tea with her. Now, I couldn't do that without IT, and that made a huge difference to me. And it's why, when I left Downing Street and I was thinking, if IT makes such a difference to a fortunate woman like me, surely there must be opportunities for using IT to bring advantages to women entrepreneurs across the world. And that's one of the missions of my foundation, which is to help women with what we see as the 3 C's that they need for growing their own business. And the 3 are, we've mentioned one already, confidence. Because too many women are told what they can't do, not what they can do. The second C is capability, capacity. It's training. It's women, again, don't get the same access to education across the world as men do. Business is partly instinctive, but partly it's about knowing how to run things right, how to read a spreadsheet, how to build a business plan, how to make the right sort of pitch to get the sort of money that Chanda will then loan you, the whatever capital that you need. And the third one is access to capital. And capital is a big issue for women entrepreneurs, and I know there must be many of them in this room that know only too well that when it comes to getting the money to grow and expand your businesses, it's very hard to move the needle, to get beyond the skeptical, often male officers in the banks who don't actually really believe that a woman can succeed in business. And so we work with our women to build those things, and we do that by using technology. And finally, I'd say this, if we're going to do anything in this world, we've got to do something about men.
All right.
Yeah, that includes you. Men need to men need to understand that women are their equals. Men need to understand that women do face obstacles that they don't understand, and men need to understand that they need to do their share as well. I was recently at the American Embassy in Delhi, where we've done a program with the American Embassy called We Can, and I know two of our women entrepreneurs who won that competition are in the room here. But we had a group of 25 Indian women entrepreneurs who came to present their business ideas. At the same time, the American Embassy had invited along some IT entrepreneurs that they had been working with, mainly men. And the women were talking about their obstacles. And yet one of the young men stood up in the audience and says, I don't understand what this woman is talking about. He says, sometimes when I go to an interview or to seek a business, people ask me about whether I'm married, and, you know, I don't find that offensive. So why are these women complaining that they can't get any help and assistance? Because when they come there, all everyone is asking them about is whether they're married. And that just showed the women were very firm with him about there is a difference, because for a man here, if you say you're married, people will think, oh, responsible, not likely, you know, got responsibilities, likely to be a good bet. For a woman here who's looking for capital and comes and they say, are you married? And she says, yes, I am. They think, oh, difficult, going to get pregnant, you know, got other responsibilities. So it's a completely different mindset. And unless young men, like the young men in those rooms, understand that, understand the difficulties that their wives and their sisters, and yes, their mothers are experiencing, then we're never going to change this dynamic.
Thank you, Cherie. In fact, you talked about... Cherie talked about 3 C's: capacity, confidence, capital. I think the 4th C today, Cherie Blair. Ivanka, you are advising the leader of the free world. You have a unique opportunity to bring about a huge, drastic transformation across the world, especially from the women's perspective that Cherie so eloquently spoke about. In India, in Telangana, we do a bunch of things with the private sector as well. We work with Cisco in a program called Women Rock IT. We also work with Microsoft, another US company, in what is called as Girls in Technology. We also work with Facebook in what is called as Boost Your Business. We work with ICICI and a bunch of private sector players. My question to you is, how can a government, be it the United States or India or any other province in India or across the world, how can a government ensure that we do more in terms of policies for bringing in more women into workforce, ensuring that they're skilled, and also how can we work with the private sector in ensuring that we give a larger share to women, which is what we've been talking about.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me here today on this remarkable panel. So much of what was said was deeply inspiring, and I agree with wholeheartedly. So one thing I'd just like to throw out there is these aren't women's issues. We're half the population. So we have to just start thinking about them as critical issues, not women's issues. So the role of strong male voices in this conversation, to Cherie's point, is very, very important. Also, going back to something else you said, Cherie, I think one of the reasons we're seeing an explosion of women's entrepreneurship is because traditional workplaces often haven't worked for us. We are disproportionately providing unpaid care while also needing to support our families financially. In the vast majority of American homes now, all parents work. So women are working, supporting their families, and providing unpaid care. And often, and you know, after years and years, generations, these cultural, social work institutions were not set up with the assumption that there would be 2 parents in the workforce. So we just have to fundamentally change things. It's starting to happen in the corporate world, albeit typically at larger companies, not smaller companies. It's a lot harder in terms of flexibility. Traditionally for people in tech and in finance making more money, not for women working at the lower income end of the spectrum. So I think that's where government policy comes in, and we need to start thinking about ways to support the modern workforce and the modern reality of dual income households. I think technology is a great driver of entrepreneurship because a lot of women are leaving and saying this doesn't work for me, and it's emboldening them to go out on their own. Technology is reducing barriers to starting new businesses. It's creating flexibility around schedule. So you can work just as many hours or more, but maybe you work some of them after you've put your child to sleep from your living room or from your kitchen table. So I think technology offers tremendous opportunities to women and women entrepreneurs, and we're seeing that in terms of the explosive global growth and domestic growth we're experiencing in the United States. But going back to public policy, I think it's incredibly important we have policies that support the modern working family. You see in tax reform the expansion, the vast expansion of the child tax credit, recognizing the massive investment parents make into their families at a time when wages have stagnated for so long. And working parents really need relief. The child independent care tax credit, tackling the cost of childcare and the fact that it's not only inaccessible in large portions of the country, particularly in rural America, but the cost is enormous to many American parents, and they're unable to afford to provide high-quality childcare. So that's another issue we're addressing. So you see some of that agenda coming to life through components of tax reform, and coming into the new year, you will hopefully see it in a national paid family leave program that we're working hard to build coalitions of support for. The president included it for the first time ever in his budget this year, paid family leave, maternity, paternity, adoption, and I'm very encouraged by that step, and we'll be working with Congress to try and pass what is a long overdue policy. So that's where you have public policy and many other things we're doing. This is a panel focused on skills training and workforce development, and we're really seeking to fuel that and make sure that we have the best trained next generation, K through 12, rethinking what we're teaching and the alignment of what's being taught in the classroom with the jobs available in the economies into which the students are graduating, but also worker retraining and skills training for older workers whose jobs have been displaced or are looking for new opportunities in their own lives as well. So this is an area we've been very focused on, and I can talk about in more detail if the conversation takes us there. But you'd mentioned the private sector, and I can't say how important this is. I mean, it's really all innovation comes from the private sector. That's where it starts, that's where it originates. And government, and thank you to all of you out there and you incredible entrepreneurs who are taking some of the world's greatest challenges and obstacles, whether it's humanitarian aids or just providing a service better or reinventing or inventing a new idea. So it's incredibly exciting what you're doing, but government's role is to help fuel that, to eliminate barriers, to create an environment in which you can really accomplish your dreams and your goals, and we're seeking to do that domestically, and very excited about the work we're doing internationally to create opportunities for entrepreneurs and women entrepreneurs, especially in the developing world.
Fabulous. In fact, let me compliment the Trump administration on, as you said, as you put it, long overdue, policy reforms which are in the offing now, and I do hope Congress passes it, and I do hope the Trump administration actually has a huge victory, especially in this very, very important sector. Chanda, you have a very ambitious ICICI digital village outreach program. You've already targeted 11,000 villages across 17 states, and out of which you've already created 7,500 women entrepreneurs. So what goes into ensuring that these women entrepreneurs in these villages from the rural settings, how are they empowered? How do you ensure that? I'm sure there must be obstacles in trying to bring them into the workforce. I'm sure there must be a lot of challenges. How do you overcome that? And how do you also ensure that they stay on top of their game? And how do they keep sustaining what they do?
So let me take this in two parts. Let me also tell you what we do at ICICI to just encourage women participation in a large organization. And then let me tell you, as our CSR, what do we do in the villages to encourage women, in the rural areas. So in the organization, as I mentioned, we are an absolutely merit-oriented organization. And in fact, if people ask me, do you have special policies for women? We actually do not have real special policies for women. And I think the only special thing that we do is to create that environment where women feel confident that it's on the basis of their merit that they will rise.
Fantastic.
Having said that, we also realize that, at specific life stages, women need that special care so that they don't give up. And I'll just point out to a couple of policies that we've started. So we've started something called I Work at Home, where we allow women, especially the young mothers, or even women who have to take care of their elderly parents or parents-in-law, to work from home for extended period. And this is not just about sitting and doing some data entry in some corner, but we create a work environment where through the use of technology, we have their computers linked online with our back-end systems. We have, face recognition so that we know that it's only the woman who's working. We have face recognition to say that if there's too much crowd around the woman and children are moving around, then the computer will shut off. So in a way, we create a real working environment where over long periods people can work from home and they do not lose out on their career progression if they're working from home.
Fantastic. Fabulous.
The other thing that we've started lately is actually to say that any mother who's got a child up to 3 years of age, and if that mother travels overnight for office work, we of course pay for the mother because she's going for office work, but we also pay for the travel of the child and the travel of a caretaker so that the mother can take the child and caretaker along.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Chanda?
So these are some of the things in an organizational environment. But coming to our skill training initiative, we've started a whole skill training initiative across India. And through that, what we've done is we train those underprivileged youth who are not able to afford higher education. For that, we've picked skills which are actually relevant for this kind of youth. So we have about 24 training centers in urban and semi-urban areas in the country, plus around 500 villages where we have taken this skill training initiative. The training skills that we've picked vary from something like a tractor assembly and a tractor repair to electricals to dress designing, garmenting, web designing, and office administration and selling skills. And what we have seen is that as we take these training skills, especially to the rural areas, we have more and more young women joining these training skills. So I'm very proud to say that we train about 100,000 youth every year, and of that, 55% are women.
Fantastic. A big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. More than 55%.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And this is what we were talking about before with really so much of the leadership happening in the private sector and government taking these great programs and fueling them and really bringing them to scale. So, some of the most successful examples of skills training we've seen when we've looked across the globe at various apprenticeship opportunities are when government teams up with industry or government teams up with technical schools, community colleges, creates curriculum, and then that curriculum is taught to students, and then on the other side, they get a job from a private sector employer. So really creating that ecosystem and making sure there's an alignment with the classroom skills and a curriculum that will actually lead to a good paying job. And a lot of it's outside of the traditional 4-year college track. I think in America, we've gotten so focused on the importance of university that we've really done a disservice to a lot of people who could have had great paying jobs, who could have gone a different route, who could have learned skills and maybe had skills better suited to the work that they wanted to do and would have benefited from technical education or apprenticeship and real on-the-job training. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity in what you're describing, and 100,000 people a year, that's amazing. So.
That's
Thank
exactly
you.
what my point was.
And since you asked, how do they stay into it?
Absolutely.
So what we do is we create courses where the content is such that it ensures them a livelihood. What we've done in the digital villages is that we've actually digitized a whole set of financial payment systems so that it becomes inclusive for people to actually carry on their financial transactions and not suffer for the lack of having a bank account and so on and so forth. Then we provide, after providing them skills, we provide them credit linkage so that these people are able to get, an ability, access to credit so that they can start a livelihood of their own. And we provide them market linkages. So we link them either if somebody's learned garment manufacturing, then we link them to the garment factories around the village so that they get a constant source of business. Or if somebody's learned office administration, we link them to the companies so that they get a job. And therefore, this 55% women who are part of this initiative, almost 95% today are standing on their feet and earning some livelihood or the other of their own.
Brilliant, brilliant. Just a great story.
Yeah, and
Just
what we've seen is that this gives them not just an economic confidence, but it actually gives them a confidence of investing back into their families, into their villages, because I again believe in this phenomena that, you say that if you educate a man, you educate an individual. But if you educate a woman, you
family.
educate a generation.
Absolute generation. Well, 55% plus employment in the rural economy. Let me go back to you, Karen. In Dell, you're leading a couple of very interesting inclusiveness and diversity initiatives. One which is called as Women in Search of Excellence, WISE acronym. And then you also have another very interesting program, Men Advocating Real Change, or MARC. You want to talk about it a bit more?
Sure. I mean, this is an area that is clearly near and dear to us, and I'm sure is important to everyone in the audience. You asked the question, what are companies need to do to get more women into leadership roles and help with skills? We launched a couple of years ago unconscious social bias training. The biases that exist in society today, Cherie talked about some of them when it comes to women and, being married and those types of things. They have to be addressed. Men need to be part of those conversations, and that's what we did with the MARC, Men Advocating for Real Change training that we have done. We have trained nearly 90% of our executives. We made a goal that we're going to take it out to all frontline managers by the end of next year. It teaches all of us that we have biases, and it's how you respond to those. And it's what you do to lead your teams through those and recognize that the world is a better place. Business outcomes are great when you have diverse thinking that you can enable. And corporations are just better places when individuals can come in and feel that they can be themselves and really contribute to the company and the organization. We also have a very, very robust employee resource group. Our Women in Action resource group is the largest resource group that we have. It is 13,000 employees strong. We have 40 chapters around the world. We are using that employee resource group to fundamentally help drive some of the policy changes around paid time off, around enabling our flexible work from home solutions. We clearly see that technology can enable how women and men can work from home. We have sites across Dell where nearly 50% of the workforce works from home 1 or 2 days out of the week. And this has actually been a huge enabler for us to hire women back into the workforce that have taken some time off, that have children, that their children are getting older and they want to come back. And there is an untapped potential labor pool that is out there of women that have master's degrees, that have started their own businesses, that we are actually rehiring back at Dell. And they're continuing to lead, major organizations and functions for us. And a lot of that is enabled through a lot of these practices.
No wonder you won the Working Mother of the Year, 2012, the award by the Working Mother magazine, because the work-life balance, I think, you talked about. So Cherie, going back to you, when you launched your foundation in 2008, you talked about how women being a part of the workforce is going to lead to stronger economies. You want to elaborate a bit on that and how and what your foundation has done to further the cause in the last 9 years?
Well, I think the frustration I feel after, as you say, we founded the foundation in 2008, is that, you know, all the research we see all the time shows that by empowering women, by women getting engaged in the economy, that makes for stronger economies. McKinsey recently produced a report which said that the world GDP would increase by $28 trillion if women were given equal access to economic opportunities that men have. And yet this year, the World Economic Forum Global Gender Gap showed that when it comes to women's equal access to economic opportunities, we've actually gone backwards. So the dial hasn't gone forward, it's actually gone backwards. So what is going on? There are clearly, it's not enough to keep producing evidence that empowering women makes a difference. We've actually got to make sure that people do something to implement these things, because there are barriers. Take here we are in India, amazing country, vibrant, so much going on, and yet India has one of the lowest participations in the workforce of women in the world.
Absolutely.
It is right down there with some of the poorest countries in the world, and does worse, for example, than countries like Bangladesh.